afternoon. My name is Ryan DePlessis. I'm a part of a group called Silent No Longer. We are a group of women that raise awareness about sexual assault in our communities. And today I'd like to say a few words as a survivor myself and bring awareness to why we're here today. Not believing survivors of sexual assault and rape has become the norm of our country, that our country has embraced. While our efforts to talk to our state representatives in a civilized manner would result in doors getting shut in our face, being taken out and physically thrown to the ground or arrested, our determination as survivors and advocates for survivors has not dwindled. Many politicians, Democrats and Republicans, leaders of faith, and other individuals have made their opinions about Byrd and Cassida perfectly clear. They must take responsibility for their actions and step down. The lack of support being given to survivors is very much present in our communities, and there are some fortunate enough to obtain the support from their families for coming out with their story and are working hard to seek justice, though many do not get the justice they deserve. The abusers are not prosecuted, and they will walk away with the conclusion that their behavior is acceptable in our society and will probably do it again. Their victims will also walk away, but with the conclusion that their stories and testimony do not matter, and they may never truly heal from the violation that was physically given to them. A few weeks ago, I read a story about a 16-year-old who was raped by a boy of the same age at a pajama party involving alcohol. According to prosecutors, quote, "The boy led the drunken girl into a home gym in the basement of the house and blocked the door with a foosball table so as not to be interrupted," end quote. Prosecutors know this by the boy who not only videotaped the act on his phone, but texted it to his friends with the caption, "When your first time having sex was rape." Later on, the girl was taken back home with a friend's parent after she started vomiting, and the next day woke up to discover that she was covered in bruises and her clothing was torn. Worried, she called her mom and told her that, quote, "sexual things had happened at that party," end quote, and confronted the boy about the video. Despite telling them that the friends he sent the video to were lying, yet was simultaneously continuing to share the video, this led her family to file criminal charges against the 16-year-old boy. What makes this case so chilling is not just the facts that I just presented you, but how the judge responded to the evidence. Supreme Court Judge James Troiano, quote, "came to the conclusion that what occurred in the video didn't amount to rape. The text explicitly described the act as rape as just a 16-year-old kid saying stupid crap to his friends," end quote. In addition, he declined the prosecutor's attempt to try the 16-year-old boy as an adult, expressing worry that the boy's future would be ruined and, quote, "was from a good family." On July 11th, in response to his decision and remarks on the case, about 50 people gathered outside Monmouth County Courthouse to demand the resignation of Judge Troiano, along with another Supreme Court judge who was also under fire for their decision on a very similar sexual assault case. Prosecutors explained that his remarks, quote, "underscored why so many sexual assault victims declined to report the crimes, and also highlighted inequities in the criminal justice system." Just 7 days ago, it has been released that Judge Troiano has agreed to step down as Supreme Court judge, clearing the way for the Monmouth County Prosecutor's Office to bring adult charges to this case and make the next moves in discussion with the girl and her family. Even though we still have a ways to go in our own community, it always puts a smile on my face to see this kind of change. For me personally, I never reported mine. I was sexually assaulted 3 times from 2012 to 2017. One involved alcohol. One was in my car in broad daylight in my community college parking lot. And the other was in my ex-fiance's bed while his parents were in the living room watching TV. Dealing with the emotional and psychological effects of what had happened to me is something I've continued to work on since then. And it hasn't been easy. My concept of love and trust has changed dramatically. There are days that I don't feel like I'm even a good person, despite what others have told me. There are days I feel like I actually deserve to be abused and raped. But what I'm starting to realize is that these feelings are normal and justified. Having those feelings doesn't make me a bad person. And it's not my fault.
That's
and
right.
It's not any of your fault either. Because I know there's survivors among me that feel the exact same feelings I'm feeling. Despite what is going on in the world right now, we have to keep this conversation going. We have to keep calling and emailing our representatives. We have to be there for our brothers and sisters among the sexual assault survivors and advocates. We have to keep our voices raised, especially during times when they will not be heard. We can't stop until Byrd and Cassida are gone. And anyone else who wants to try and make us stay quiet will be met with a power they can't take away from us. Persistence, determination, and the pursuit of justice for all. Thank you.
Woo!
When Governor Lee and Representative Lambert have chosen to be silent about everything that's going on, about all the corruption, it is the people who has stood up and shown what leadership is all about. It is the people who showed what needs to be done and fought for what needs to be done. And then they decide, we've got too many people speaking out, so let's try to silence them. Well, we see how well that worked, didn't it? And when that didn't work, they wanted to claim that it's a partisan issue or a partisan agenda. Well, guess what? Whether you're Republican, Democrat, Independent, you can still be raped. Whether you're Republican, Democrat, or Independent, you can still be a victim of racism. Injustice doesn't care what color you are, how you vote, what gender you are, who you love, or anything. It affects everybody. It is not a partisan issue, Governor Lee. It is a moral issue.
That's right.
And again, it is the people who showed the moral character, the courage, and the fortitude to stand up. None of us were looking for a fight. None of us here today wanted this fight. We were not looking for a confrontation with evil. And I guarantee you, none of us asked for or sought an assault on the sovereignty of our own bodies, on our morals, or on our Constitution. But what we did do is we stood up to those who tried to silence us, and we showed that the true measure of character is how one rises up and faces evil when it rears its ugly head, and that is exactly what the people of Tennessee are doing right now.
That's right.
Elizabeth Cady Stanton once told us, the moment that we begin to fear the opinion of others and hesitate to tell the truth that is within us, that is when the divine floods of light and life cease to flow into our soul. Well, since Governor Lee, Representative Lambert, Representative Sexton, and so many others have refused to put their faith into action, they've refused to do what Jesus would do, then it is up to us to do it. That is why we're here again today. That is why we'll be here again tomorrow if we have to be. That is why we will not stop fighting. Because when they will not fight for our state, then it's up to us, the citizens, to fight for the soul of Tennessee. Thank you.
That's right.
Well, first of all, I just want to take the opportunity to thank everyone who's here today. A lot of my own personal heroes are here because you have unspeakable courage and you've spoken up and you've stood up in the face of great adversity. And I think all of you qualify as survivors in one form or fashion. And I am just so incredibly thankful for you and everything that you have done and for your consistent loud voice in the Tennessee General Assembly. It is much needed to bring attention to these issues facing not only women in Tennessee, but families of Tennessee. You know, as a state representative, I serve having grown up as the product of strong women. The perspective, the ideologies, the positions I take on issues today, and the issues that I speak about, and the bills that I carry are all the direct result of the influence women have had on my life. I was fortunate to have a strong mother, 2 strong grandmothers, aunts, and a sister who all left lasting impressions on me and really showed me and gave me perspective of what strong women look like. And I see that in each and every one of you who are here today and those who support your efforts.
Up next we have Reverend Howard Jones from the Fairfield Missionary Baptist Church.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
First, I'd like to say thank you all for being here. If we remain silent, then this mess continues. My heart goes out because I have a daughter. She was birthed by my mom and my sisters. And when we say nothing, then it's sin. It's like committing the act. So we must stand up and fight against those things that's horrific in our community, horrific in a society like this. It's time for us indeed to stand up. When we have elected officials silent, I thought I'd come here and the place would be full of those that we have indeed elected to really represent us, to stand up and be bold. Because of our daughters, we must stand up against sexual harassment on the workplace, in the play place, everywhere in the community. We've got to stop it, because to indeed assault a woman is to indeed damage the soil that really produces the soil, the seeds that really come through. So we've got to stand up. I'm rather saddened because this place should be absolutely full for those who are running for office and saying we've got to stop this. Because if I don't stand up and say something about it, then it continues. And I don't want my grandchildren and my daughter to be sexually assaulted. I think about racism. Racism. The other day, I shared with the congregation and others, I shared with them that on the 13th of July has been designated as a day to celebrate the Ku Klux Klan. A day to celebrate actually sin. I'm a history teacher. I understand studying history. I understand the uniqueness and the wonderful pieces of history, and we need to study history. But I will not celebrate my sin. And when it's celebrating Nathan Bedford Forrest, that's celebrating sin.
That's
and for those who don't want to get into the idea of sin and righteousness, well, let's say this: we should not celebrate terrorism.
That's right.
Because when we have someone that fashioned a hood and fashioned a costume and put people on barns, nailed them to the barns and burnt them, that is terrorism. So let us all stand up. Let us call everybody we can that's a politician. We're going to call on the pastors, call on the rabbi, call on everybody in this community to stand up against sexism,
That's right.
stand up against racism.
Yes.
And when they're saying that we're just going to celebrate Nathan Bedford Forrest, we're not going to celebrate terrorism. Thank you for listening.